Hey guys, welcome to Mrs. G's Sewing Space. We have 2 more videos left in our zipper series, and the first one we're going to be talking about is our centered zipper, which is right here. So using our fake faux garment here, my sample just shows you that this zipper can be put into a seam right here. It'll allow you to open and close with no worries, and it's mostly hidden. If you use a zipper that's the same color that matches your fabric, it's going to be pretty much invisible. Almost invisible. Mostly invisible. We'll say mostly invisible because you can still see it. So here you go. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm sorry, I'm picking out threads here. I didn't pick them all out the first time around. We're going to get started sewing our centered seam, and in the next video I'll show you how to do the invisible zipper. So this is what we're going to do for our centered seam. I have my pretend garment pieces here, and I went ahead and interfaced the seam allowances here where the zipper is going to go so that it'll strengthen it for the zipper and for the seam. I'm going to move my zipper to the side, and I went ahead and marked this is where the bottom of my zipper is going to be. So I went ahead and marked it here so that I know that I want the metal stop at the bottom of the zipper to be below this mark here, so that way when I do my final stitching I won't get that metal stop. So we are going to put our right sides together just like so, and we'll pin them up. Okay, just like that. If you saw my prior video, the lap zipper video, what we did a basting stitch, which is a temporary stitch to my bottom mark, and then we did a regular stitch all the way to the bottom. So this will be permanent down here below this mark, and up above will be temporaries because this is going to be picked out eventually. So I'm going to go ahead and move to my sewing machine, and I'm going to do a temporary stitch and my permanent stitch, and this is going to be at a 5/8 seam allowance. Normally when I do my patterns I do a 1/2 inch seam allowance, but if you're doing a commercial pattern it's usually 5/8, but double check on your pattern to make sure that you stitch it on the correct line. Place my fabric here. I'm going to butt it up against this line right here, which is 5/8 of an inch. So I have this marked on my sewing machine. I have a mark right here. So right here on the edge is a 1/4, this is a 1/2, this is 5/8. So I'm going to go ahead and just mark it right there. What I'm going to do is to lengthen my stitch so that it's at the highest length that I can, and we're just going to baste until the point. Now at this point, with my needle down, I'm at the mark where I want to convert my long basting stitches into a normal permanent stitch. For me, that's about 2.6 or 2.8 depending on what I'm doing and how I'm feeling. We're just going to go ahead and stitch that down. Now that I have my stitching done, this is a basting temporary stitch. When I get to this point it becomes a permanent stitch, which is a shorter length. So I am now going to iron my seam flat, and I'm going to iron my seam allowance open. Alright, now that I've got my seam ironed down and I know where the top and the bottom of my seam line is, so this is, like I said, temporary stitching, permanent stitching. So right here we're going to mark here on this side where the line is. So now I know this is the bottom of my zipper. So we're going to take our zipper and we're now going to place it face down. So the zipper head with the pull here, we're going to lay it against the seam here. I want my zipper teeth right here in the middle. I want to lay them against the seam line here. So it needs to line up against the seam line as best as I can. And with that, I'm going to pin here at the bottom. Up here, my pins. I'm going to do 1 pin, and then I'm going to take my zipper and I'm going to unzip my zipper like that. So unzipping my zipper like this will allow me to take the zipper teeth and line it up against the seam line that's right here. And once I have it lined up the way I want it, I'm going to go ahead and put a pin in. And the pin is going through the zipper tape and the seam allowance. We're not going to the front, so it's only right here in these 2 layers. So once I have that, I'm going to take this to my machine And I'm going to do a basting stitch just to hold the two layers together, the layer of the zipper tape and the layer of the seam allowance. I'm going to just do a long baste right here from the top to the bottom. And then when we come back, we're going to do the same thing for the other side. I'm going to line it up, I'm going to tack it, I'm going to pin it down, and then I'm going to tack the zipper tape to the seam allowance without going through the front side. So I'm going to get those two sides done real quick, and I'll be right back. Now while I'm doing this, I need to pull out my zipper foot, because now I need my zipper foot. And I'm going to use the original foot I had that came with my machine. I'm not going to use the narrow foot, at least not this time. And so using the foot that came with my machine, this is the one where you move the foot, not the needle. And I'm going to line it up so that my foot will travel down this way. So my shank needs to be here on this side. Okay, thread to the back. I'm actually going to take that one out. Line it up. And we're only doing a tack stitch here, so I'm not going to get really close to the zipper teeth right now. I'm going to just tack the tape, the zipper tape, to the seam allowance. So make sure you have everything moved out of the way. And I'm going to lengthen my stitch. Okay, now that we have one side tacked down, and this is only a tack, it's just a basting stitch here, it's not going to be shown on the front. We're going to zip up our zipper tape now, and we're going to go ahead and tack the other side to the seam allowance. And if you feel the need to pin it down, then pin it down. Sometimes you need to do a little maneuvering and finagling to make sure you still want your zipper teeth to lay in the middle, just like that. So now we're going to put this back on the machine, and we're going to do a stitch right down here. Okay? And because we have the zipper head in the way here, we're just going to kind of go around it. So in your stitching, there'll be kind of like a U shape as we go around the zipper head. Oops. And this is why I like to put my pins perpendicular like this, or horizontal. It's a perpendicular horizontal, like this, so that as I come to the pin, I can easily remove it instead of coming this way or trying to pull it this way. So let's just get around, there we go. Move that pin. Okay. Okay, now we have our zipper sewn onto the seam, just the seam allowance. It hasn't been sewn to the front yet, just the seam allowance. And now we're going to take it and we're going to flip it over. Bloop. Just like this. Now we need to mark where the bottom of our zipper is. So we need to mark it here on the front. We don't want to sew over the zipper tape, so all I'm doing is taking a pin and putting it right here, right above the metal zipper stop. So when I sew, I won't go over the metal zipper stop. And make sure you go through all the fabric because I need to be able to see the pin on the top. So right here. So this is where I need to stop at. So this is where you can take a temporary marker, your chalk, whatever it is that you use, usually something that's water soluble, air soluble, so that you can make the marks on the top of your fabric and not have to worry about it being permanent. I'm going to use the foot that I have to guide me on how far away from this seam is that I'm going to sew. But if you need to use a ruler, then feel free to use a ruler. Let's see. I want it to be about that much. That looks about 1/4 inch to me. So all my markers, everything that I would normally use that is water soluble or air soluble has dried out. So it's been a while since I've used them. So I'm just going to mark here with my pencil on this side about 1/4 inch where I want my marks at. And I'm just going to lightly mark here. Now, if I was doing this on a garment for real, I don't want these marks to show, so I would find something that's a water or air soluble, that's water or air soluble, and then, because I don't want these marks here permanently, but I'm doing this as demonstration so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm just going to mark one side. So if you need a guide, draw yourself out a guide. If you don't, use your zipper foot like I'm going to do, because that's usually how I do it. So I'm going to take this back and we're going to sew down this side. We're going to stop. We're going to keep our needle in the cloth. We're going to pivot our cloth this way. We're going to sew right across here. Stop here at the corner, keeping our needle in the cloth, and we're going to pivot, and then we're going to sew back up. And then when I've done that, I'll come back here and show you what it looks like. Okay, so we're going to start here on this side. Nope, we need to move this over. So using my foot right here, so where the needle is, right here is 1/4 inch, so I'm going to use that as a guide to my seam right there. Now my zipper head's right here as well, so I might have a little U shape. But take it slow and easy. Don't rush. Don't feel like you need to rush through this process. Just take it easy and do it right. Or if you feel like rushing, rush. You know, just whatever floats your boat. Okay, pivot. So I got my needle in. I'm going to pivot, and I've gone too far because I feel the metal stop right there. So I'm going to raise my foot. I'm going to go back just a little bit so that I can put my needle in without hitting that metal foot. Let's see. Am I still too far? No, I should be good. So I'm going to go over. If you're not sure where you're at and you need to get a better look at where your needle is, take your foot off the pedal and then use your side, the side, to figure out where you're at and how to get to where you're going. I need to go one more stitch. There we go. Then I can pivot and go down this side. Now I'm just following the line here. Oh no! My bobbin ran out. Alright, I gotta put my bobbin back in. Hold on a second. Here it is. So I ran out of bobbin here, so I had to go back and put a new bobbin in. So I got a little overlap of stitches right here, which I would rather have if something runs out, because you want security in your stitching. So I have the two U shapes here because I had to go around my zipper head that's hidden right there. So I'm going to take my seam ripper right here and I'm going to pop that stitching right up the seam here. Now normally when you do this, you want to do matching thread, you want to do the right needle size, the right needle type with the correct fabric, but this is just a demonstration for you guys so that you can see what I'm doing. So okay, then you just pick all your extra threads out, and here you go. Now you have a zipper that's still hidden within the seam of your clothing or whatever it is that you're making. It's now mostly hidden. That's also why you also get a zipper that kind of matches. You don't have a bright purple zipper here on a red dress or red shirt or anything. But there you go. And that's how you do a centered zipper. I hope you guys enjoyed that last video. I know that a centered zipper is super easy. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's really simple, and all you need is your standard foot and your normal zipper foot, and then making sure that everything matches, your thread, your zipper, your fabric, or they match enough so if you don't want it to be too noticeable. If you want it to be noticeable, then you go crazy with whatever fabric or zipper choices or whatever it is that you want to do. As always, remember to give me a thumbs up, like the channel, hit the subscribe button down below, hit that bell so that you get notifications from me whenever I pop up a new video. I'm going to be trying to put out more information. Tutorials will be about once a week. I'm trying. Let me put it that way. I'm trying. We're almost close to 1,000 subscribers, so thank you guys so much for paying attention to me and my channel. I really appreciate that you guys find what I'm putting out interesting enough to subscribe to me. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And so I will see you guys in the next video. La, 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 la. Okay. What do you think about this? Center zip. Alright, I gotta trim these threads. These threads are just driving me crazy.